Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another of our sessions on our how-to series. Today, we're going to be looking at how to complete a bank rec using Sage 300. And sometimes I guess it does feel like a competition, so it's how to complete a bank rec using Sage 300. Today, I've got Jean Gendron with me, and she's a senior consultant here with Net at Work, and she's a guru at bank rec, so we brought her on to show you how it's all done the right way using Sage 300. My name is Sean Fleming. I'm a senior solution engineer here with Net at Work, and so I'm going to jump right into the content today. So I estimate the session to last approximately 30 to 45 minutes, depending on the number of questions that we get. The phone lines are muted, and if you've got questions, I see a lot of you are repeat attendees, so you know how this works. Just make sure you put the questions into the question queue, and we'll do our best to answer those questions and interact with you. So please do that. As with all of our sessions, our goal with just in general at Net at Work is to help you unleash the potential of your business through the transformative power of technology. And we do that in a number of ways. And so it can be something as simple as a bank rec that we're going to look at today, and it could be a little bit more involved in looking at, well, now that you've done the bank rec, and can I look at a cash flow statement as a financial statement? So, and everything in between. So we're going to focus in on the bank rec today, but if you've got challenges really in any of these areas, any of these softwares that you see listed here, reach out to us. We're here to help you unleash that power and make your business run more effective and more profitable. So with that being said, let's hop into it. So with all these sessions, always doing a quick poll, just one quick poll today, give us an idea of how people are doing bank recs, because you can either use the system or not, don't do a bank rec at all. So let's see where we're at with this. So are you using Sage 300 Bank Services to complete your bank rec today? All right, so we've got about just over almost 70% in. We'll give it another second. The rest finished off. So a good majority are using the bank rec today. Got 86% using it, and no is 14%. And I'm glad to say that nobody's trusting their bank. Okay, so, and I've got another vote here. So some instances we're having issue with the polling thing. It's not letting you vote. So I apologize for that. I'm not sure what the issue is. I'll have to take that up with our vendor as to why it's not doing that. But all right, so it's an 80-20 rule here. 80% are using it, 20% are not. So you've got that, Jean. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close that poll out. And let's talk a little bit about what we're going to cover today. So lots to cover. We're going to talk a little bit about bank services integration from AP and AR, and why bank services exist and how that integration works and what feeds bank services. We'll talk about opening balances and just kind of getting started. How do you get started? How do you clear transactions once you've got transactions in for deposits, withdrawals, checks, and that's both U.S. checks and Canadian checks if you have a challenge with spilling. And then you can how to do bank transactions, how to enter those transactions in bank services versus the general ledger. How do you make sure you balance it to the general ledger? As a bank control account. I know Jean will talk through that as well. And then what are your options for posting? What reporting do you need to look at? And then what are my options for importing my bank transactions? What's OFAC stand for? What's a new functionality in the latest version? I'll touch on that with the e-statements that's there. And then we'll look at what's the difference between the bank rec and the traditional desktop, which probably the majority of you are comfortable with. So I know Jean's going to spend time in there. And then I'll just kind of wrap up with web screen version of the bank rec. So with that, let's hop right into it. I'm going to give control over to you, Jean, and you should see that here in just a second.
Okay. So can everyone see my sample company desktop?
We can.
Okay. So good afternoon, everybody. Again, I'm Jean Gendron. I've been with Net at Work for about 3 years. I've been working with Sage 300 for longer than I'll admit to. because that would give away my age. So, but I've been in and out of the Sage world for a while, so I've seen the product go from DOS up through Windows, and anybody who used BankRec way back in the early versions of Windows, it was a little problematic. They've come a long way with it, so it's a much more stable product now. So bank services is part of common services, and it's very much like any of the other sub-ledger modules in a lot of ways, in that it gets transactions from other places. So in accounts payable, transactions, payment transactions come into bank services. In accounts receivable, your receipts from your customers come into bank services. Nothing from general ledger will feed into bank services. So if you're going to be using bank services and you've never used it before, that would be something that you would have to get used to, is that you can't make transactions to cash accounts in GL. And there is a way to control that. So in general ledger, in account setup, this is our cash account that we're going to be doing a reconciliation for today. If you set this up as a control account, and on the sub-ledger tab, you say accounts payable, accounts receivable, and bank transactions are the only transactions that can come into this account, it will prevent you from doing a journal transaction in general ledger that goes to a cash account. So it'll help make sure that all of the transactions go to your cash account also go to the bank account, because they're kind of separate. You tell bank services what the GL account number is that's associated with a bank, which I'm sure you're all familiar with in bank setup, but we'll go there anyways. So when you set up your bank, you're assigning the GL account here, but if you don't set 1020 up as a control account, you could possibly put transactions into general ledger that would not make it into bank services, and therefore could cause your bank to be off from your from general ledger balance. It is a toggle, the control account, so if something happens that you need to make a transaction in GL to cash to get it together, and we'll get to that a little bit later when we're talking about the first time you do a bank rec. So it is a toggle. You can turn it on and off. It's not one of those things that you're locked into. Okay, so with that, under bank transactions, reconcile statements is where you do your bank reconciliation. We're going to be doing the first bank, and we're going to be reconciling April. The bank statement date you will get off your bank statement, which is typically the last day of the month, not always, but typically, and the reconciliation date will be the same. When you click on calculate, Sage will go out and pick up all transactions that are on or before those dates. So the bank statement balance you will get from your bank statement, and I have my fictitious bank statement in front of me, which has a balance of $2,599,357.01. And right now my book balance is $2,596,153. So I know that I've got outstanding deposits and outstanding withdrawals. On the reconciliation tab, you can display all transactions, or you can display only outstanding transactions or only reconciled transactions, which comes in handy once you start reconciling items. Transaction types, you can look at just your withdrawals, and typically that's the way your bank statements are laid out, so that might be an easier way for you to look at it, or just your deposits, or all. So first I'm gonna clear some deposits. And you can use the quick clearing, which since I don't have a whole lot of deposits on here, probably not, won't save me a lot of time, but when you have a lot of transactions, quick clearing can save you a lot of time because you can clear them all. You can clear a group of transactions with just, and actually I didn't want to do withdrawals. I wanted to do withdrawals here. And I'm going to clear from 517 to 520. And you'll see that it cleared those transactions for me without me having to. The other option is by just double clicking into the fields and Xing the transaction off. I'm trying to follow my notes here so I make sure I clear all the right transactions so my balance comes out right. Okay, next.
Hey, Jean, can you maximize that window just so we can see it a little bit
Oh,
bigger?
sorry.
There we go. Perfect. Thank you.
So now we'll look at deposits. And we're going to clear 48, cleared the bank, 49 cleared the bank, and we'll use 15, 16, 17 cleared. Now let's say you have a situation where these deposits, your deposits are the total that's going to show in bank services is the total of the AR receipt batch. So let's say for some reason or another, your bank held one item out of this deposit. So there's a status called Reconciled by Deposit Details. So if I choose that, and then I click on Details, I can see, oh, and I chose the wrong one. This isn't the one I wanted to use for my example, sorry. So here I see, let's say this deposit, right, this check right here, for whatever reason, your bank held that one and it didn't clear. So you can clear the transactions that did clear the bank. It'll keep track down below of what the total is. You need to tell it at the top, what is the total that did clear? And the other item will stay as outstanding until next month. So you see it cleared 327.42 and it left the 1,098.74 open. So if I go back to my main screen, oh wait, let's make believe I put in 259930. Okay, I'm off. I find I'm off $50. So at this point, you could run a report. And this report will show you, these are all the transactions, these are the amounts that cleared, and this is what you're showing outstanding. So you could compare this if it were easy for you to look at this on a paper versus looking at the screen. Compare this to the bank statement that you've got back from your bank. And whoa. Trying to close this without. Technical difficulties here. Okay. So let's say you discovered that, oh, that's a $50 charge that the bank charged you for either, service fees or, a bounced check or something like that. You can create a bank entry straight from here. This screen is also available to you just on the regular bank transaction section too. So as the month's going along, if you know there's transactions that they don't come from AR, they don't come from AP, they're just transactions that you're hit with, credit card fees, if you're earning interest on the account or anything like that, you can use the bank transaction window, which works a little bit different than like a general ledger screen in that it appears to be a one-sided entry, but you tell it if it's a withdrawal or a deposit. So if it's going into your bank, obviously it's a deposit. If it's coming out, it's a withdrawal. Date the transaction, and then assign the GL account number, and my bank fees is 6110. So add that and post it. And now if we come back to our summary, it's going to make a liar out of me. Oh, you have to clear the transaction as well. So it's going to show up as a withdrawal that needs to be cleared. Now our out of balance is 0. You could print that same report that we printed before because it's a good log of everything that happened. Because when you post the bank reconciliation and you print the posting journal, it doesn't print everything. So the report that we printed up under print here, this gives you more information. It shows you every single transaction and what cleared and what was still outstanding. So it's a good report to print. You can print it to PDF if you don't want to print it out to paper, but it's good to keep for your audit purposes. So once it's in balance, the out of balance has to be 0 or Sage will not let you post it. So you may have a lot more transactions that are here than are in here. So doing a daily bank reconciliation is also possible. You can come in every day. You can, once you post to a particular month, like when I post this one, I would never be able to go back and post a March reconciliation, but you can post in April as many times as you want. You just can never post backwards. So we do have many clients who who do reconciliations daily because they have many transactions that are coming through, and the end of the month, it just makes it a little bit crazy. When you're first starting out with BankRec, you can import the transactions. The import functionality up here allows you to import outstanding deposits and outstanding checks that may have come from your other system. Oh, and the last thing you want to do is check here. This zoom button shows you this is my GL balance. So you always want to make sure that both of those are in balance with each other. And if you have cash set up as a control account, it should always stay in balance, but for many reasons, people may have to turn that toggle off, and your reconciliations could get off. There is a way to fix it, and if you're starting BankRec for the first time and you've used Sage for a while, when you come to the reconciliation screen, you are going to see every single check and every deposit you've ever made back as long as you've been in Sage. So the best thing to do, the best approach would be to use the quick clear all of the old transactions and get it to a manageable point, and take whatever reconciliation you were doing offline, whether it be in Excel or QuickBooks or however you were reconciling before, and come up with what your outstanding deposits and outstanding checks are. And then a couple different things you can do. We can create a bank transaction that just debits and credits cash to get the book balance to be in line. You can also kind of fake the statement balance the first time through so that you can get this to come out to 0. But the most important thing is to make sure that your book balance and your GL balance out to what the bank reconciliation is on the left-hand side. Left-hand side represents the bank, right-hand side represents you in Sage. So you can post right from here, and it'll tell you that posting complete and the normal Sage message on how many transactions were created. The report you're going to want to print after that is the reconciliation posting journal. The last reconciliation is normally the one that you want. If you need to post one that you've posted before and you haven't cleared it, you can reprint. Once you clear, you can never print these again. There was an old requirement years ago to have to clear reconciliation journals, which doesn't really exist anymore, so you can keep them as long as you need to. So this is the report that you'll get with a summary page, which you can print out to PDF or print to paper. save it wherever you save all your important documents, and off you go. Oh, where we made the, I'm drawing a blank here. Oh, bank entry. This is the same screen. So if during the month you want to enter your bank transactions without having to go into reconciliation, put all the dates in, you can just come in here and do the same thing. Put in a withdrawal or deposit. Make sure you watch your dates, that you're dating things right. One thing that can trip people up, and probably one of the most common questions that we get with when people can't reconcile their bank, it's with dates. In particular with reversing transactions. Be careful when you reverse transactions that you're reversing it in the same month that it happened in your bank, not what happens to show up on the screen. But that is probably the biggest tech support question for bank rec, is that it's reversing transactions in the wrong period. If you do have a lot of bank transactions and you don't want to go in and clear them yourself, there's importing from OFX statements, which is, OFX is a kind of a standard, although most banks tell me not so standard, even though they chose a standard format that a bank can send you a file of all the transactions that have hit your bank. You would save it out somewhere on your server and browse to it and import it. I don't have one out there, so we can't look at it. But in 2020, in product update 2, Sage expanded on that, being able to reconcile with e-statements, because it's a very common request. And supposedly, and we haven't used this functionality a lot because it is brand new, 2 weeks, maybe 3. This allows Sage to interface with more banks across the country, where they can provide what they call a feed. So you would call up your bank here. There's a button that doesn't show up because we don't have a bank account attached to our sample data here, but it's a get transaction, and somewhere in the background, it's all set up so that the transactions from your bank will feed right into this screen, which we're very anxious to start using. So if for no other reason to update to 2020, this is a new feature that they've added in there that I think will be very useful for people, especially people who do a lot of transactions. Sean, do you want to take over and show us web screens?
Absolutely. So I'll also comment on the statement stuff. So
Yes.
we're talking with Sage. One of the things that makes it difficult for us to show it is that we haven't got a link to a test bank, and so they're working on setting up trial accounts. So look for that information in an upcoming webinar that we'll do, just a what's new on 2020.2 release, and I will highlight the Reconcile e-statements once I'm able to actually demonstrate it with a proper bank account. So I've got one question in here that let's ask that first. So when I import Reconcile OFX, the only transactions that clear are checks. Are there any tricks to get the other transaction types to clear?
I don't think so in OFX. I think they're going to be more using Reconcile e-statements, Sean.
Yeah, I believe so too. I think you're going to find better luck with the e-statements than you are with the OFX file. The standard OFX file, we joke that it's a standard, but as Jean had mentioned, it's a standard that the banks don't all follow. And I think with the bank feeds, what Sage is trying to do is to take into account what their formats are, and then they'll do the translation using the e-statements reader. So it's a replacement for OFX. Those that are using OFX, it'll continue to work, but this I think will be a little bit more universal. That Sage is going to do the mapping for the e-statement. So with that, I'll go ahead and give myself the presenter rights here. So I will share my screen here. We're still taking a live look. So I'm going to go back out to my desktop and specifically the web screens. So of course, my web screen is logged out. So I'll log in, and this is actually, I think, the same company that Jean is in, just in a different, in the desktop view. So just like every other module, it's in common services, but in this, on the web screens, it's got its own node, if you will. And so if I go in here to bank transactions, my bank setup is here, my reports are here, I've got some clear history and GL batch transactions options that are there. The same stuff that you see in the traditional desktop, you'll also see it here. So the Reconcile Statements is at the top, the OFX statements here, the Reconcile statements is there, the bank transfer and the bank entry functions are also here. So really everything that you'd see, including all of the reverse transactions, are all here in the web screen. So if I look at the Reconcile Statements, pretty much the same thing, same concepts. I'm not going to repeat it, just kind of show you the UI. You've got the bank balance on the left, you've got your GL balance on the right, and the same functionality that you would put in here. In fact, we're seeing the same data that Gene typed in here because I pulled up that same bank information. So that's it there. And then when we go to, in fact, I'm going to have to choose a different one because you already posted that one. So I'll choose the Seattle Bank and just go to the reconciliation. So in here, you can say, show me all the withdrawals. You can see we haven't got a whole lot of transactions going through this particular bank. Just show me the deposits. It's the same functionality. We would go in, change the status. The same statuses are here. The bank entry is down at the bottom. You got a post and a save. You've got the ability to look at the totals. So pretty much the same functionality that you saw on the desktop is just now in the web screen. Okay, and then the same is also true on the bank services side. If I again look at the e-statement piece, which is new, the one thing that we didn't really look at was, looking at the transaction history. That can be brought up here with any of the bank codes, and that's also available in here. And I can refresh that and go get, here's all the transactions that are here, what the statuses are. So that's readily available as well. Okay. So that's the difference here. I will say that the one thing that is different in the web screen versus the desktop, you have the ability to use the space bar as a toggle in the desktop. You don't have that ability in the web screen. You're using the mouse. You got more mouse movement on the web screen. So that's the key difference between the two of them. So with that, I haven't got any more to add on the web screen side of things. Jeannie, you got anything more you want to make sure we cover? You want to take yourself off mute. I will go ahead and highlight.
That would be an idea, right? No, I don't think so. I think Bank Rec it's pretty straightforward now. It works pretty well now.
Perfect. So the one thing I want to leave you with is the other thing that people ask, once you reconcile a report, well, what do I need for cash flow? Cash flow reports. So both Sage Intelligence and Sage Enterprise Intelligence come with cash flow reports out of the box. So if you're looking for those type of reports, those types of things that you want to put in the dashboard, you can do those sort of things using some of the BI tools. So here's just a quick sample of a cash flow report that's in Sage Enterprise Intelligence, and you can do similar things with Sage Intelligence as well. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up, and let's just make sure we've got any questions. So let me go back to my PowerPoint here, and with the next slide. Reminder, if you've got questions, feel free to type them into the question queue. I've only had one come in, so that means we were either really, really thorough or we've got more fun things to work on than bank reconciliations today. All right, I'm going to leave it at that. I don't see anything else coming in. I'll leave the question queue open, and if you've got questions, we'll still monitor it for a couple of minutes. But again, I want to remind you, we've got upcoming sessions next Wednesday and Thursday, so if you haven't registered for them, take a look and see what we're offering there on the Net at Work website. We'll send out an email invite. We're hoping you're finding these sessions informative. Our goal of these sessions is just kind of give a little bit of an overview. In some cases, you're working from home. Some people, maybe different people, are doing these jobs. And at Net at Work, we want to make sure that we help you in any way that we can continue to help run your business in this current state that we're in, and make sure that you can continue to thrive regardless of having to work remotely. So with that being said, thank you for attending, and we'll see you on the next webinar.
One last thing,
Yes.
anybody who's, for the few who are not using Sage Bankrec right now, give us a call. I mean, a little bit of one-on-one, maybe 15, 20 minutes, we could send you on your way and kind of give you step-by-step so that we're helping you walk through it. Because the first time you get in there, you could see some crazy numbers and be like, oh, I don't want to deal with this. So feel free to reach out. We'd be more than happy to help you out and get started.
Absolutely, Gene. All right, appreciate it. Good ad. All right, thank you, everyone. We'll see you on the next webinar.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Gene.